So, as I was getting my thoughts together for this review, a word kept popping in my mind, and that word was fitting. Reason being is because the horror genre is my absolute favorite genre in the whole world. It's above all other genres. As much as I love every genre, horror is just the one that always resonates with me. The very first horror film that I ever saw as a kid was, in fact, the very first Scream film. And I was far too young to see it, but I still remember absolutely loving it, just being so fascinated with it. Given that horror is my favorite genre, and original Scream is the first horror film I ever saw, and this video here is my first ever video on the channel, yeah, I'd say that's pretty fitting. So Scream 6 is the brand new Scream film in the franchise following the events of the last film. Of course, centering around certain characters, centering around brand new characters. This film follows the four core, as they like to describe it in the movie. It follows them as they kind of leave Woodsboro. They kind of just want to move on from the whole situation. They just don't want to relive, the traumatic experiences they've had. So they feel that moving and leaving Woodsboro is probably the best thing to do, which I would probably do the same thing if I'm honest. So they moved to New York, trying to find a new start, a fresh start, a new beginning. Of course, all that spirals down when they are unfortunately faced with Ghostface yet again. Right off the bat, this movie just delivered something so incredible for me. As a fan of, the entire franchise, I something that always sticks out to me, and I think everyone can agree that one of the staples in the Scream franchise is the opening sequences. Every film has a specific opening sequence, and I think that's something that really kind of defines the Scream franchise, because their opening sequences kind of, sets the mark for every film. They're kind of iconic in their own way, and they kind of right off the bat let you know what you're getting yourself into. But the thing with me is that I feel like no opening sequence has ever topped the very first opening sequence of the first film back in 96. That opening sequence with Drew Barrymore was just so incredible and so iconic to this day. I feel like talking about films in general in any genre, that's an opening sequence, and that's a scene in itself that is just so memorable. To this day, it's one of the best scenes ever in any movie, in any genre. One of the things that I was really hoping for was to see if any Scream, opening sequence could ever live up to that original one. Unfortunately for me, it just never really has. I've enjoyed all of them. I've had a lot of fun with all of them, but just none of them have ever seemed to really just hit as hard as that original one did. There was just something so groundbreaking about it. None of them just really lived up to it until now. This opening sequence was just, it was interesting because it was completely different from any other sequence that's ever happened in this franchise. It was mapped out differently. It was just so new and fresh. They took turns and twists in a way that was just unexpected, kind of off the bat, which is new for the franchise. But some way, somehow, they still managed to keep it Scream oriented. It still felt like an opening sequence in a Scream film. The way they managed to make the two contrast, with it being so different yet so familiar, kind of blew my mind. As I was sitting there watching it, I was just like, I can't believe how different this is, yet it feels so familiar. And I was just absolutely enjoying the hell out of it right off the bat. Something that I really love too is that the movie doesn't really waste your time. You're not necessarily waiting for something to happen, whether it's going chaotic or calm, whatever it is, you're still enjoying something. There's still something happening, whether it's a sequence, a crazy sequence going on, or whether it's just an interesting conversation between the characters, or whatever it is, it's still interesting. The characters of Tara and Sam Carpenter, they're different, as they should be. Tara is a little bit more like she just wants to break out and party and just have a good time because that's the only way she knows how to just not think about the traumatic experience she faced a year ago. While her older sister Sam just wants to protect her because she's still kind of scared that it could happen again. She's still a little on edge. She's scared to be public with people that she's close to. She already wants to protect the people that she's been close to, of course, her own little sister. She doesn't want her sister ever getting hurt again. It's kind of interesting to see just how the events of the last film affected them now, a whole year later. I thought that was really interesting. It made these characters, to me, it made these characters a little more enjoyable because they were already likable in the last film, but I don't know if they were that interesting. Meaning, you could like someone, you could like a person, you could like a character, but there's no true depth to them. There's not going to be a whole lot interesting, as likable as they could be. I don't know if that really makes sense. I really felt that they made these characters more than likable. They made them interesting, which I really appreciated. Something that I absolutely love about this movie. The way this movie managed to transition smoothly between the calm moments and the chaotic moments. The parts where people are just taking a breather, whether that's because nothing has happened yet or because something just happened and they're trying to breathe, take it easy. It's interesting to me the way they managed to kind of transition from a moment where two characters can just be talking to each other and 30 seconds later they're running down the street being chased by Ghostface. The way it transitions into that throughout the movie, actually, it does that quite a lot, but it does it so well. It's so smooth. It keeps you on the edge of your feet, but none of it is predictable, which I love. At this point, it's like you should know what to expect with the Scream film, but they played with that. They played with that idea of predictability. As a Scream fan, I already knew a lot of what to expect. I feel like the movie itself knows that too. The movie is kind of saying, you should be aware of what to expect with this kind of movie if you're going to sit here and watch me. So we're going to do it. We're not going to waste your time doing it. We're just going to get to the point. Between the moments, like I said, that are calm and the moments that are chaotic, they contrast so well to me. They just work hand in hand. And I know maybe what I'm saying doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just crazy, how well it works. There were moments that you didn't see a chaotic moment coming. You didn't see a chase sequence or anything coming. You think that the scene is going to play out a certain way, and then it doesn't. You think these characters are just going to have a nice conversation and then walk along. And next thing you know, they're being chased, and it's really cool. Of course, the movie does have its moments where the suspense builds up and it builds and it builds and it gives you that anxious feeling, but it pays off really well. I absolutely despise cheap jump scares. I really don't like them. I think they're pointless. I think they're ineffective. I don't like them. And this movie never does that. Every jump scare, every suspenseful build up, whatever it is, it hits. And the fact that this movie goes so smoothly from chaos to calm and then vice versa, especially vice versa, I think it's incredible. Now, something I want to touch on, this is the first Scream film without Neve Campbell. I was absolutely worried about that. It was something that I couldn't really imagine a Scream film without her, without the character of Sidney Prescott. I think she's such a staple in the Scream franchise that I was actually very concerned, that her not being in this movie was going to somehow ruin it. But I'm so glad that I was wrong. I'm so glad that my worries were pointless. If there's one thing that this film did really well, it was show that the Scream franchise can live beyond specific characters. Even though Sidney Prescott is such a staple in this franchise is still strong enough to live alive and well if it's focused on another character, or even if the primary character of the entire franchise isn't even in the film. I think this movie did an incredible job at showcasing that. I was scared that Sydney's absence was going to be felt, and it kind of wasn't. I was surprised, and this is going to sound a little messed up, but I was surprised how much I didn't really miss her that much. Of course I did, but I didn't miss her nearly as much as I thought I would. The movie just knew how to deliver a solid premise, a solid story. You know, these characters, every single one of them shined. Every single one of them was phenomenal. They were all really great in their own right. And at the end of the day, that's all I could really ask for. A solid film, solid performances, solid sequences. The violence was insane. This is probably the most pissed off Ghostface I've ever seen, and I loved it. It was very well done. I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm very surprised that, 27 years later, the Scream franchise still is a thing. It's still relevant, and it's still this incredible. Yeah. As a fan, you can imagine that I'm very pleased and very happy. So, it's for that and for that reason that I have to give Scream 6 a solid 9 out of 10. So, what would you rate Scream 6? Let me know down below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.